I'm Anthony Farina, your host for tonight. Right on time as usual. Yeah, so tonight, Viking snowball fights and building forts out in the snow. What's that all about? Well, maybe they train their armies that way. Kind of a cool concept. And colognes, the how-to. I've been asking people questions, women and men alike, for about the past 3 months to try and understand just what is it about the right scent and why it's so important. Then I'm going to go into a little self-defense thanks to a gentleman named Chris Collins. He actually was a contestant on Top Shot. He's a former Marine, and he runs his own ATA, I think ATPA. It's a self-defense instructor course. We have a lot of good information from him, and philosophy as usual, and more. So right here, thank you for joining Fire Tea and Philosophy. I'm your host, Anthony Farina, writer, philosopher, and former infantryman. Now, one thing I've realized that is lacking in this show over the past couple years, and did not occur to me until recently, was that we don't talk enough about tea. I ain't gonna bore the shit out of you with it, but I wanted you to know I got a book, A Social History of Tea, and as I'm reading through it, there's a lot of good stuff in here. So I will be bringing something more tea exclusive into every show. Until that time, it's a good way to open up with that. If you have not tried, it's called Zhao Chai. No, I'm not getting sponsored for this shit. This stuff's amazing. That's what I'm drinking tonight. Put a little, instead of doing honey in the tea, it costs just $1 or $2 more, but this is nectar. Use very little of it, and it's really sweet. And I tell you what, tea is, it's like one of those things where if you need to sleep, you drink a little bit of it at night, some chamomile, and there you go, you're out. Hello, Lisa, and hello, everyone else. Howdy, partner. Hey, and for the rest of you guys, earlier this week, I posted a question about what is keeping you from happiness. Well, some of those questions I could relate to, others I couldn't, and had to do some research. Overall, I think I've got some good feedback I can give you that I hope helps you or someone else. So throughout the program, if you're new to it or returning, please, again, continue to contribute to the conversation because we've had some of the best conversations here. Lisa backs it up. She says, Zhao is super yummy. I like to put milk in my chai. Yes, sleepy time tea is what helps me get to bed, actually. What types, though, guys? I mean, you got sleepy time, but was it chamomile or passion flower, I think is another one. But yeah, I've seen people add milk to tea. I've tried it. It's okay. Not a personal favorite, but I know a lot of people who do, and it's really good. So if you haven't done that yet, give it a shot. So first thing on the agenda tonight, the Vikings, right? We're going to get just real quick through them because I am not an expert on Norse mythology or anything like that. But I found some cool shit about them. And why, as I just picked them randomly as a topic to talk about the Vikings. Why is this kind of cool that we're talking about it right now? Because they're winter survivalists. I mean, there's some really cool things I learned about them from survival, just reading up on them. But a quick note on that. Now, with Vikings becoming really popular, and you got the I think it's History Channel or Discovery who did the show Vikings. When I was looking into it, that show is like widely misrepresented. So don't go, if you're looking for factual information or something with a good base about Vikings, search the word Viking, and maybe if you're looking for how to procure food or Norse bow or whatever, and then put the word archaeological evidence. That is the closest you're going to get to the facts about Vikings, more than all the other stuff we see on the internet. Here's what happened, right? So I was looking up the, like how they train the warriors, and like they really revolved around the winter. Like their strong point was understanding the winter. The winter played a more macro level in their culture and in their mythologies and a lot of things we see today. An interesting note on that, I did have to ask a few scholars on both sides, and pardon me for sweating, it is freaking hot in here. But I found that, I mean, you guys, if you do know me well enough, I'm Catholic, but I found that there is a lot of stuff in Norse mythology that it's like bringing over to Christianity. Like there's a goddess Hel is her name in the Norse religion, and she guarded the underworld, just like we get it from Greek mythology, which predated any of that stuff. So my interest is to now seek out professionals and say, hey, where can we connect the dots with Greek mythology, Norse mythology, and Christianity? And that's just a cool learning point no matter what. So you're educated and go on about. I will post some good links for that. Back to the show. So when the Vikings would train their armies in the winter, they would have them build snow forts, and they would use snowball fights as a way to to maneuver and train their elements. I think it's really cool because ever since a kid I was learning how to build forts in the snow and stuff. So here we are as children in America learning the ancient ways of Viking. We didn't even know it. The other thing is they have something in the winter called the longhouse, and the longhouse, what we see in our society today, is a barn. And how they would do it is they knew that they couldn't keep the livestock and all the vegetables and everything outside, so they had to really make good use of all their raw resources to survive the winter. And then so they got to the spring, they would go on and redo the whole season. But basically in the longhouse, a couple interesting things would happen. They would have all the livestock on one side. The livestock would produce heat, obviously, but they could also guard them. And it would keep them alive. But in the middle of the big longhouse, i.e. our today barn, was a fire. It went lengthwise. There wasn't a central fire like we see in houses today with a fireplace. They would have ventilation in the roof, but the length of the fire would radiate out from each side. And I thought that was, hearing about that back then, that was really cool. Then they also, their main methods for preserving food was smoking, curing, anything like that. And if you're just joining us, my name's Anthony Farina, this is Fire Tea and Philosophy. Feel free to contribute to the conversation. We're talking about Vikings, philosophy, and a whole lot of other stuff. So I want to see how you guys are doing. Ultimately, what made the Vikings superior was their technology with the, I think, the longboat, I think they call it. So that's what made them travel farther than any other culture or race, as you will, in that time. So they were able to go on and conquer and everything else. So a lot of stuff you can get about Vikings everywhere. But like I said, if you're going to search for it, the reason why I was able to get that tip about searching the word archaeological evidence with Vikings is because there was an archaeologist. He's like this like the world's leading specialist who was giving a talk on Viking winters. And he brought this up, is like, look, there's so much misconstrued stuff about Vikings. If you want to look what they did, start with the archaeology, then go to whatever sites link that. If somebody just rambles on about them, it could be whatever. But that's just combating the basic misinformation of the information age. Yeah, with that, there was a type of fish they smoked and they cured it, or they pickled it. Now, after they smoked it, they said basically it would just last, like they had no expiration date. So it's interesting things that the Vikings had that we kind of lost touch with in our society today. But on to that. Ladies, if you like to chime in this part, please do, because I've gotten most of the information from you. And gentlemen, if you are experienced in the fragrance world, please, it's a learning adventure. Why am I bringing this up? Because over the past 3 months, as I've been on this cologne journey, you really go down the rabbit hole. I mean, the CIA even published a report on women's olfactory. I think women have an extra olfactory bulb, if I am not mistaken. It could be wrong, but it's something like their sense of smell, a female's sense of smell is better than a male's sense of smell. So with that, I started reading more and more about different types of colognes for different types of seasons. I'm just going to show you a few here, and you guys give me your input. This is to just put information. We're going to go ahead and say just get rid of the Axe body spray. I hope everybody agrees with that. Jamie said, is it true that Vikings are one of the only cultures in society that treated their women as equals? I don't know. I would believe it. There is there's something about, if you look up the goddess Freya, that connects directly to what you're asking, Jamie. I did briefly come across something like that, but I don't remember what they were talking about. It was just how women were viewed more of an equality, from what I understand, but the exact details I'm not sure of. But yeah, good question. So if anybody knows the answer to that question, please give it a mention. So on the cologne journey, right? It's one of those things where once you start reading about, you're going to continue reading, and you're going to continue having a billion options open. It's like Neo coming into the Matrix, you know? Worlds open up. Gentlemen, if you're going to get one, remember less is more. That's one quick general rule. Another one is there is a type of cologne for a type of season, i.e. if it's hot or if it's cold. And also the impression you want to give off with any fragrance is people are supposed to discover it. They're supposed to come close to you and smell it, not you're 10 feet away and walk through a door and then they smell it and go, what the hell is that shit? That's the concept. Now, the problem with it is everybody's body chemistry is different. So how a cologne smells on one person may not particularly be how it smells on another. My go-to cologne ever since I've been, I don't know, around, my daughter loves it, nieces love it, family loves it, girlfriend, ex-girlfriend used to love it, as you were, is Aqua de Jo. That's the everyday cologne. I was given the title the dad cologne. And Chrome Azzaro. Now the problem with some of these colognes, when you're looking them up and you think they worked before, I've noticed Chrome doesn't work so well. And I found out the manufacturer, which this is common in the cologne industry or fragrance industry everywhere, roughly every 5 years, the manufacturers change the DNA of the cologne. They base their money off of return customers, not so much initial customers. So if you've been buying it for a while, they can use a cheaper product after a few years and you wouldn't really notice it. So the top one that's had a lot of compliments, I wear this and I do in general. I got like 3 compliments the other day. It was really great. It was at the mall, I went to the gas station, the grocery store, and every place I went is Yves Saint Laurent. I don't know if you can see where the camera is. It's right there. This one is Y. This is a light, you know, it's light and it's not real heavy or anything, so like that. But just basically to end out the cologne thing is just understand your specialty colognes like Christmas, dating, over wearing it out every day, over never using Axe. The other thing is people do like to you got to be careful with your body wash and your deodorant when you use cologne because it can really mask the scent and mess everything up. Also, the points are your wrist, your elbow, sides of your neck. That's about where you want to go with your cologne. 1 to 2 squirts, never more than 2. And just give it a shot. Just go out there and experiment. It's kind of what I've been doing. Some people don't like cologne on others or, you know, perfume. Just a good body wash will do. So it's up to you. Play around with the soaps and the cologne, see where you go, and you will be impressed, and just go from there. Next on the list, so far we've covered Vikings, we've covered their warships, why women are important to an extent, which we need to get back on, and we've covered cologne. This is Fire, Tea, and Philosophy. I am Anthony Farina, your host. Thank you for joining me tonight. Next, we have self-defense. Now, I was able to get some questions and some good information from a gentleman named Chris Collins. He was a contestant on Top Shot. He's also a former Marine, and he runs ATAP training. It's a firearm. He's a firearms instructor. You know, I could sit here and give my perspective on self-defense and all that, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to get a fresh view and also see, you know, obviously what are some things more in home defense, because I'm not really good with all that somebody could offer that's solid for anybody. I mean, you don't have to go crazy in this, and that's the beauty of this. So, the first thing he talks about are the, you know, 99% of people are not ready to kill or hurt someone. So it's a big psychological thing. So let's say you were defending your home, you shot someone or you hurt them. You're not ready to really process what that is. It says the statistic he gave me was about 24 to 48 hours. If you're in the medical field, please, or a psychologist, I mean, I want to hear your feedback on this as well. It'd be great. That after a traumatic event, you know, the cops are going to come up here. They're going to start asking you all these questions. This was really good advice. He says to answer minimally. Don't be all wordy. Okay, understand that your brain needs to go into REM sleep. You need about 24 to 48 hours of rest. prior to being able to go give a really good statement where you're going to remember a lot of the facts. So let's say a guy came in and he busted in your home, you shot him, he's dead, cops show up. You're freaked out. Before you do anything, just let the officers know, hey, I know you want to question. I'm enduring this event right now. I'm not in the right state of mind. I will call you in 2 days at this time. Can I have your number? That's a really good thing. If they keep persisting, another good tip he said was just get a lawyer on retainer. They're very cheap. I mean, just to have someone so you can call right away and go, hey, cops are doing this. They can shut them down. I'm not saying anything bad about policemen at all. Do not get that wrong. It's you have to protect yourself legally in situations at all times, especially when it comes down to that. The second point is understanding your state's laws, or your county and state laws, right? So I know in certain places, give me an example, guys, wherever you're at, Texas, North Carolina, how does it differ from Massachusetts or Indiana? Let me hear your thoughts on this. I know that some places, no, you can't shoot them when they come in. You're liable for that. And then other places are like, yeah, there's already a rule. If they cross your property, you can kill them. So it'd be good if you guys are aware. Let's see in the comments, because I think that would just give whoever may be watching this some added information. The other thing is, you have to really be thoughtful with this process whenever you do deal with law enforcement, because if you do say something that is totally messed up, it makes you, it can make you look like the criminal instead. You could be facing some legal charges. That's it, Lisa. Okay, Lisa says check on cattle laws. I was trying to think of that term. That's a good term. I've heard the term cattle laws a lot before. That's the stuff that covers a lot of everything in that effect. So the next thing Chris mentioned was the 3 Ds. I mean, we got an acronym for everything, right? So the first one's deter, detect, and then defense, right? I believe in passive measures, no matter what, even if it was in Iraq or if it was in Israel or Jordan or wherever the hell I've stepped foot on, even coming back home, passive measures for your protection. The first one he mentioned is lighting. If you have good lighting outside your house, motion lights, things like that, those are enough usually to just make people run away, because they'll think a light come on and they went. Also, you got to think of the effect if you're inside and the lights are on, okay, and then somebody is looking in the window. You're not going to see them outside, okay? They're going to see you. So the lighting on the outside will blind them or throw their sight off of that. Then we go into visual. No trespassing signs, beware of dog, armed person on property, I don't know, whatever. So go into those. Those are actually out there. Those are for your protection legally as well. Hey, this person could have seen this, and they chose not to, so that backs you up more legally. So then the other thing, he made a very good point of it, I think we see this on the rise all too often, is that people are breaking in houses, especially relatives, for medication, for narcotics or for whatever pain prescription, all these things, right? So how you can prevent that is you just keeping your knowledge of where your possessions are, don't letting it be known so obvious. So just think of the ways maybe somebody knows where your medicine cabinet is, I don't know. Secure your valuables, don't let anybody know. If you need to go, Amazon, all these places have fairly cheap security cameras. If you are interested in them, check them out. Also, really cool fact, on your windows, if you ever wanted to get into it, maybe you live in a high crime area, there is a protective coating you can put on your windows. Just order it up, and there, it makes it really hard to break in, if not impossible. The other thing, and I see this happen more common in small towns, I've heard of it a lot of happening, and if it's happened to you, I do apologize. It's a bad thing, but let's say you have a garage, and in the garage it's unsecured, the door is open, and there's hammers, screwdrivers, all your tools. Well, if the robber wants to get in and he goes to the garage and he sees that's like an armory for him. He can take his pick. So you want to think in those directions, the passive stuff, locking things up, not letting people know where stuff is, having lights on the outside. Okay, let's move past that. Let's say you did all that stuff and you're in bed with your spouse, right? And the kids are in the other room. Somebody breaks in. What do? The number one thing you do is you don't want to turn on the light right away and start running down to see what it is if somebody did break in. You want to go get your family, get them in one room, barricade the room, and you want to do it very quietly. You don't want to alert the perpetrator to what's going on. Why not turn on the lights? Here's why. He's already entering your premise, and his night vision and his ears and everything have adjusted to the sound. In the military, we got a acronym. There's a thing we do when if we get dropped off in the woods to go patrol. The first thing we do once we get to the area in the woods and everything is quiet, it's called SILS. Sit, look, listen, smell. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes for your senses to adjust to the night. So too, if you're in the house and it's quiet and then somebody breaks in, this guy's senses are already adjusted. You turn on the lights, you're trying to squint around. It makes everything more difficult. So maybe just think in those terms, that will help you out. Finally, things that can make you a target, you want to be a hard target, not a soft target. A soft target would be on your porch, you have a bunch of decorations that are very valuable. I mean, people walk by, they case the joint. A basic reconnaissance, those things, that will get you in trouble. That makes you a target. Being a hard target means you're hard. People are going to avoid you just by nature of what they see alone and feel, the intimidation factor. So the next two, and then we're going to get on to the questions for tonight, but I'll sum these up real quick because I do not want to take up a lot of your time, is none of this really matters if you do not have any type of self-defense training. If you've never shot a gun, you got it. Odds are if you're at night and you have to load your weapon to protect your family, guess who's showing up? His name is Murphy, and he screws everything up all the time. He's got a law. If it's working, he's going to make it not work. So Murphy's going to intrude. Now, that's why in the military, we would always train at night doing magazine drills, unload all the stuff, and checking for malfunctions. Be familiar with the weapon that you have, if you do have one. Be aware of your state laws, and be certified, because if you have to use it, and you've done those three, you're in a lot better position than somebody who just went off and bought a shotgun or a pistol, has no training, and then they just start shooting things. So pick your poison, become proficient with it, and that's all you should really keep going. So detect. The mindset you want to get into is once these things happen, the guy broke in or you're noticing somebody's on your property, you need to switch from prey to predator mode. You need to think how predators hunt people down just in the animal kingdom. You're on the prowl. You're looking for things. You're going after them to deter them from getting into your family. So those are just some very valuable mindset. Thank you, Chris, for the information you've given us tonight on that respect. If you're just tuning in to Fire TM Philosophy, my name is Anthony Farina. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to close these last parts of the show, the meat and potatoes. Now, what have I seen? I posted a comment earlier this week, and I said, what keeps you from being unhappy? Those individuals who commented on there, I'm going to address each of those because I feel that really, there was about 15 comments or so, and they really did encompass like, I don't know, about 90% of things that keep all of us from being unhappy at some point in our lives. I thought it was a great way everybody interacted. So if you're watching and I come across your comment, or if I come across somebody else's comment and we're discussing it and you have good feedback for them, please announce it, because this is the meat of the show. This is where we all learn from. But first, some philosophy from a very wise man I am going to impart on you. These are his words, not mine. I just think these are good words to live by or to think about. He says, how do we survive? I'm going to read these from here, so I apologize. How do we survive when we enter the downfall of life? What is the downfall? Well, the downfall is you've invested everything you had in a career and you're about to go bankrupt and you lose your job. The death of a spouse or someone who you mutual exclusive with, and your lives were dependent on each other. anything. Think of the major catastrophes that are going to happen in life. How do you survive them when they come to it? Well, that's the question you need to be asking. What do I need to do to prepare for this? You have to understand that at some point, no matter if it's a downfall, no matter how big it is, don't quit. Keep going. If it wasn't good for you, if that job was not in the right place and you've invested everything, there's a reason you're not doing it right now. Maybe the powers that be knew you were unhappy in that position, made shit happen for you. Murphy came along and kicked you over. I don't know. But what I'm telling, the whole point behind that one is, what are you going to do when the downfall happens? Because it's going to happen to each of us in this lifetime. We just think it doesn't. We watch everybody else be miserable. And if you haven't had one for a while, just get ready. There's nothing to be afraid of. I've learned from my greatest life downfalls, that's where I was able to become something better of a person or learned a valuable lesson. That's how I look at it. No matter how much it sucks, there's a great lesson to learn from those, and we need those in order to progress in life to be more of what we were. Which brings us on to the next one. The wise man says, can you live with yourself on the way to becoming a better self? What does that mean? Well, it means this. Let's just take a basic analogy, nothing picky, right? You have a major addiction or a spending problem or something, right? So you take steps to start becoming a better person. So long goes by, let's say a couple months, you're not doing your habit. All of a sudden you trip up and there you are. You're back drinking or gambling or whatever else again. That is the whole concept of, can you live with yourself on the way to becoming a better self? Because if you cannot give up those habits, you'll say, no, I'm going to go back to my drinking. I can't live with that better self that I was going for. That's how you have to ask yourself, and you have to really face that question on a deep spiritual level. Soul searching, man. Sarah says, failure is good in the long run if you learn from it. It is. I mean, it's that's where we get experience. That's a very good point. That's experience, life's best teacher. So if you're dealing with something right now, a struggle, an addiction, I don't know, whatever it is, and you know you want to be better, you want to get to somewhere else to be happy, you want to get past this, there is one guaranteed way that that future you that you envision is never going to come to fruition. And that is by giving in to your old self. You're never going to get there. You're going to constantly live back there. And we're going to get into the past in a second. Opposites attract only insofar as they are alike. Very true. Person A, person B, or whatever, how you want to use it. They have these opposite things, right? They come together because essentially, in some respect, you're doing good for each other or you're filling a gap. But once you reach a point where that is expended, all those options are expended, you go the other way. Opposites do attract, but only insofar as they're alike. Remember that. So when you get involved in those situations, and whatever it may be, how you love yourself is how you love other people. Can I get an amen? Yeah. What do you guys think? I think so too. How you love yourself is how you love other people, right? Are you putting yourself first? Not in the selfish sense, but you're mentally taken care of, you're financially taken care of before you go lend somebody money or something like that. Are you doing that? Because that's the biggest, money is the biggest one I see with that is, I see these people who give with their heart. They give their money and all this stuff, but then they turn around and their bills are late. And I'm like, look, it's not wrong to set aside money for yourself. The basic of everything financial is pay yourself first. You guys probably heard that shit. Oh, we got some amens. It is hard. That is right, Sarah. It is hard. If this shit wasn't easy, or if this shit was easy, we'd all be driving Ferraris and superstars, whatever, right? It's supposed to be hard because in all those hard moments when you achieve it and you conquer it and you rise above it, you go, I figured some shit out. And now I know what to do. And you go on with your life. So, Take care of yourself first. Be selfish to the point where you get yourself right. Then what you have left over, you can give to others. You can give them extra time. If you're the person people always go to for the problems, but it's wearing you down, put a limit. Hey, when I talk to this guy about his problems, it's either going to be 1 day a week or 15 minutes every month. I don't know. Put a limit, because you got to watch out for yourself first. Just like paying yourself first. So you're paying yourself first in health. You're paying yourself first in your finances. Before you know it, your life gets a lot better. Then you can give back. That's why, I talked to a few good people who are successful business owners. And one of them owns a local construction company here. And we had that same discussion. I said, before I even told him what I was talking about, I said, hey, validate this question for me. Are you charitable? Do you give regularly? And he says, yes. And I've seen that. But he doesn't tap into his business's pockets or his future pockets. He has what he has to give: advice, driving people somewhere, offering people help for a job. He takes people in, gets screwed over, and it's sad because this dude has a heart of gold and his wife is amazing. They're both really great people. But they go to the line where once they give something, they can afford to lose it, and then that's it. So they're not giving more that's going to put them in jeopardy. I hope you understand. I think I beat that one enough. The next one. Tolerate evil until one can get rid of it. I thought we're always supposed to be doing away with evil in some respect in our life. No. Sometimes you cannot get rid of it right away. Sometimes the evil is necessary to stay there and teach you a point. Sometimes the evil has to get so bad for a group or a collective to band together to change things permanently. But only tolerate the evil until you know you can get rid of it. Because if not, it's going to be faulty intentions. We'll use the addiction thing again, right? So you're tolerating your addiction, and then you try and get rid of it. But in your heart, which is the one thing that will control if that addiction goes away, that's the one thing that's responsible for it, isn't ready to get rid of it. Once it's ready and you can get rid of it, get rid of it. Take it for what it's worth. Finally, understand each other. That's just us being human beings in this game called life. In regards to logical versus illogical. Why? My God, just look on social media. Look everywhere. People are arguing about things so much, and it's insane. A lot of these arguments are so illogical. No handbook when we were born that says this is how you fight evil. You have to learn along the way, and hopefully you've got some good mentors to teach you. But if you don't, the one thing besides hatred that evil has in common is deception. So if you're taking on too much, goes back to the whole giving what you can, taking care of yourself, and then give what you can. If you're dealing with evil on such a large scale and you're not prepared to get rid of it, you need to sit there and you need to create a plan, seek out counsel, whatever it is that's bothering you in life that's really getting you down. There's a friend of mine, he's a very good psychologist, and we were discussing how people argue on social media, and I said, you know what I'm noticing? I said there's a large voice in the world, in America, among people, especially my friends, who I know are very intelligent, and I never see them engage in this shit. And he said, yeah. He said, there's a reason for that. He said, we're approaching a time where the illogical versus the illogical has done nothing but clash with each other, and the people who have a clear head are stepping out completely. There's no point in interjecting logic when it gets that bad. And I said, wow, we're turning toward the movie Idiocracy, right? Now, my friends, please join me. I'm going to answer your questions. Right? I'm going to pull up a chair because I think this is a little close and personal. I'm going to first say that these questions that you guys have had, that you put forth, they helped me out personally. I liked it because they made me do some deep thinking and introspection on my life, but also I talked to two other people who are kind of really suffering from depression and some other family issues, and some of these questions really help them. So you guys, thank you. You've made an impact, and I don't even think you realize it yet. You're an amazing audience, a group of friends, and people I am very happy to just say I've associated with us in this life. Okay, we'll go through these closing points, and I'll bid you good night. What keeps us from happiness? First question. My friend Jamie, she says, stress brought on by other people living in my house. That's one of those where, I mean, I can relate when I was a kid. I live with my dog. Don't have a lot of that right there, but I can understand. The only thing, Jamie, if I could give you any heartwarming advice on that is saying, you know, maybe it's time to just take some time for yourself because you know you deserve it. So when cooler heads prevail type thing, but you can't always do that when you're surrounded by people. So what do? I don't know. That's one of them tonight that if you guys live in a household that maybe used to be chaotic and it was hard to get away from, but you found a solution, please tell me. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know what to do. I know what I would do, but you know, it's not the same as what my friend would do here. Because she has many other obligations and she deals with problems, I would say, in a more professional manner than I do. I'd just be like, screw this shit. No, joking. Okay, next one. Sam K says, finances and co-parenting with a jerk. I'm only going to take a minute on this one, but, you know, finances we could do a whole episode on. I kind of did one about the amortization schedule. Guys, you have to give yourself a little credit. Yes, you do control where the money goes, but you are living in a time when prices for everything have just gone up so much and it's difficult. So this is what I say is there's a few things you can always do. You can always start selling little things. Facebook's got I don't even know, what is that called? Where I see people sell on here every now and then. They're selling baby clothes, they're selling video games, Craigslist. It doesn't hurt if you have a lot of things. I one time had to hire someone to sell a lot of things for me, and it made more money than what I paid her to do it. So if you have to hire someone and you know you got a lot of stuff sitting around, that's a good investment because you're going to get more. I would think you're going to get more back. Co-parenting with a jerk, you know, that is never a good thing. All I got to say is to both parents, if you're a divorced parent right now and you have children involved, the message is this, and I am sorry, this is the one line you need to really, if you don't agree with this, okay. But when you make things difficult on the ex, the children are the one dealing with that. They're the ones hearing through the walls the fighting. They're the ones seeing, you know, what's going on. They're the ones dealing with the anger and everything else. And so you need to put if you're being a jerk dealing with your ex, or you're both being jerks, you need to put your shit aside, and you need to put that kid, or those kids, number one, and that's how you go about business. Parenting with a jerk, I mean, I was, you know, early on in when I first got divorced in 2005, I mean, I was in the military, whatever. I wasn't putting my daughter as a priority, and, you know, it wasn't until years later when me and her finally started getting a good relationship, and a lot of it stemmed from that. So if you're just new to divorce and things are rough because the emotions and tensions are going to be high, I'm telling you, you're affecting the kids more than you can possibly know. And on top of that, your inability to understand the fact that there is so much raw emotion between you and ex, if it's still new, it can go on for years. So create some healthy boundaries. Hey, if you know for a fact you and him or you and her are not dealing well with each other, find someone that can moderate the visitation or things like that. Because when you spit these atrocities at each other, it not only breeds the animosity, but in the same sense, you're setting the example for that child of how parents should be. So just because you screwed up doesn't mean that that child needs to screw up later. So think of it in that light. That's if you know you're doing the right thing and you're doing the moral high ground, you're doing everything you can. Yes, because that's the other side, is there are so many people out there who are divorced where the one is just making it so difficult and you can't do anything. So if you're stuck in the opposite side and you're doing everything you can and you think you're about to lose your mind, I'm telling you, hang in there. I'm telling you, hang in there, because my mom had 4 of us. You know, me and my brother, we were being shits. We were starting forest fires, running around, spray painting Jeeps and shit. She was working 3 jobs. Mom always kept her cool and was always mom. You know, and I respect her more than anything else. I love my mom to death. But it was always the other parent that just always had shit going on. So that's right. You know, if you're doing the right thing, continue to do the right thing. It will pay off. The other one I've heard is, well, I'm doing the right thing, but I think my kid hates me because the other parent is putting all this in their head. That's going to happen when they're young. But your key, if you're walking the high ground and you're doing the right thing, your key is consistency over time. Because they're going to look back after they're being young and adolescents, and they're going to say, thank you, Mom, or thank you, Dad, for just doing the right thing when you did. You taught me a lot. So when it gets really hard, try to think of it this way. What am I teaching my kid when they're 20 years old? What am I doing right now that they're going to do when they're 20 years old, when they're 30 years old, whatever? That's how you act. You don't want to be... It's hard to do the emotion thing. We all lose our emotions because we're human. But, you know, do the best you can. So, I hope that helped in some situation. So, number 3, stuck in current job with future plan and wanting to fast forward, yet wanting to enjoy the current situation, by Jeffrey. So, Jeffrey's stuck in a job. He's doing the betterment for his family. He likes his job, but he wants to get to where he needs to be. Well, with that, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, if Jeffrey, if you're in the military or you're working for the government, that is kind of the thing, because the government holds this big carrot over your head that says, hey, in 20 years, you can have all this bullshit. So, or boast any job. I mean, there's always that golden ring in the sky that you got to look for. I would say keep pursuing the course as long as it is of greater benefit to you and your family. Once it becomes less benefit to your family, and I'm not talking money, I'm talking you're working so many hours, you're so stressed, it's breaking apart the actual family you're working for, might be a sign. Just saying. I know it's not easy to change. I ain't got the answers. I'm just trying to get you to think a little different so you're not stuck in places that you're unhappy and you're wasting the good years of your life. You know, so Sarah says side hustle. Yeah, get a side hustle, man. There's all kinds of ways out there, and not gambling. Okay, I'm gonna go win the lottery. Health, says Joe. Yes, we can all do better for our health. There was an article I posted earlier this week, and thank you for staying with me, by the way, guys. I know it's getting a little late, but this is just, it's a lot to cover. I'm going as quick as I can. You're great. Y'all are amazing. There was an article I posted earlier this week. This guy, he works in the special operations community. He's really big into like all these studies, and I mean, he's just got so much great information. He posted a study about what fast food actually does, the connection between our stomach and our mind. And man, I don't know how to say what it was, but there was an island and it had 2 sides. One side had access to fast food, the other one did not. And the side predominantly with fast food, what they found in their blood test or something was like a 1-to-1 ratio of this chemical or hormone or something that's linked to depression. The people with fast food had the 20-to-1 ratio because of their diet. So I'm not saying don't see your doctor or get off your meds. If I'm not a doctor to tell you that, but I'm telling you right there, if you haven't really seriously worked on your diet, you need to consider it, because diet is going to drive you down. Everybody knows this. I mean, they're putting all kinds of shit in food these days we don't even know, right? So Sarah says a hobby turn into business. Yes, you start doing a small hobby now, it'll grow later. And there was this author I knew. He was a lawyer. He was writing 2 books, holding down a family, and being a lawyer at the same time. Why? Next one's time management. Here's what you do. It's a really cool trick, okay? Say you want to get stuff done or you want to get more done. This is a Warren Buffett trick, if you will. you go ahead and you label the paper 1 through 24. 24 hours in a day. You're going to go ahead and start filling out the paper just initially, but later you're going to do it in detail as your day goes by. How much time you spend doing what, right? So you go to the shower this much, you're in the bathroom, you're at work, you're in transit, you're eating, you're sleeping, you're getting ready, whatever. You're going to fill this in. Even when you initially fill it out, I'm willing to bet you're going to find a gap in time there that you could have used otherwise, right? So now when you actually go through your day, you're going to find out there's an insane amount of time there that you're passively wasting, so to speak, unless you're one of those who's just on the go. I mean, there are people, but for the most part, try this out. Label 1 through 24, and it's every hour of the day, even down to the minute. And you're going to see, okay, now that time can be my currency in this respect because I found where I'm wasting it. I can roll it over into writing that book, starting that business, being a coach, whatever else it is. Rodney says, blood type diet is a true it's true. Eat foods to your blood type. You'll feel a difference in the first couple of days. Lisa or Doc, the other Doc, did you guys, I think I've heard you guys talk about that before. I'm not familiar with the blood type diet. That sounds really cool and would make sense, you know. In some aspect, I think I'd really like, Rodney, if you've got a link or anything like that, please post it here for other people to look at, because I think that'd be some great reading in general. Diet, you know, we have so many things out there. People are telling us to diet this way or that way, and you can get lost, just like searching for the right clone, man. Get the right diet, stay on it, be moderate. Okay, so like I was saying, once you find that extra time, you roll it over and you dedicate it to that thing, because that thing you love will turn into that thing that drives your, it pays for everything. It'll become that thing you love doing, and you can leave your old life behind. That's how it happens, man. That's how I've always heard of this happening. So find the time, apply it correctly. Sally says overthinking. All I gotta say for that is mindful meditation. What that is when you find yourself overthinking and your thoughts are rambling, a great trick is to just sit there. You start with your toes and you take a deep breath, and you work your way up all to your brain. What you do is each breath you take is each part of your body going up and down. Then what you do is you think real quick, where am I at? What am I doing? That'll usually refocus yourself and help you stop overthinking on all those little tasks. Why? I used to do that chronically. That was a trick I was taught, and it's a beautiful trick. So, deep breaths, because if you're overthinking, usually your heart rate is fast and it's controlling your breathing to go faster. Oh, 1 second, we got a question. I am unsure of this one, don't know about this one, but there's tons of diets out there. Yes, thank you, Lisa. Sarah says there's a book on blood type dieting, don't remember the title. Okay, cool. Hey, learned something new anyway. Love you guys. I'm going to look into that. So, yeah, so usually when you're overthinking, you don't realize the rest of your system is starting to go into overdrive too, which drives you to think quicker and panic and all that other stuff. So, breathing is the key. Here's another one, finances and living paycheck to paycheck. This guy, John, he made a good comment. He said, people say money doesn't buy happiness, but he thinks that's wrong. And we both agreed on a statement of that is, it's true, you can't go buy happiness, but you can pay off the bad things, your debt, and do good stuff with money to lead to a happier and fuller life. So why I say that is because, you know, I do know people who are kind of against that concept of, no, it's never good to have a ton of money. And okay, well, great. But if you do make it, you can do more good with it. And that goes back to that fact of all the successful people I know, like business successful, if you will, they're charitable. They're giving more to other places. So it's what you do with it. So yeah, in turn, that's what happens. Sorry about that. Okay, next one. Couple more here. Social anxiety. Tatiana, Tracy, Emily said, yeah, you know, in this day and age, we are seeing a huge increase in anxiety. It could be food related, or it could just be because you can't trust people. They're fucking evil. So Dave says, not that hard to earn money. Every person you have come across in your life has something they do not know how to do or do not like to do and will pay you to do it. That's beautiful. That is true. And that's, Dave, is that not how somebody finds their niche and creates, I mean, how millionaires have been made? is they found a niche, they found a need, and you were good at, and you just figured out how to pitch it. So here's the thing, Facebook, if you've got a talent, you need advice. I mean, I know some good people. I will get them in touch with you, and they can just answer a few questions. Maybe that's all you need to get on the right track to success. So Lisa says, there was a study out there somewhere that said the most money you can make and still feel really happy is $70,000. I read that one too. That number's been showing up a lot actually, because it went up to people who made $250,000 or many millions and stuff like that. It was an interesting study, but again, I think it's in perspective because I'd be pretty damn happy making $1 million a year. I wouldn't complain. Yeah, I'd buy all my Facebook friends a trip to the Bahamas or something. No, I'm joking. I'm bullshitting, because if this show goes big and I start doing that, then anyway, love you guys. I'll send you some tea. Okay. Okay. So here's one for corporate and military leaders not being leaders. Real quick on this one. Okay. Leadership guru. There's 3 things. If you're a leader and you're not doing the 3 following things, you're wrong. And there's no way around it. Okay. Lisa wants to go to the Bahamas. And Dave says, it's relative to cost of living, $70K in space. Yeah, it is. Because if you live in Palo Alto and you're making $70K, you don't even have rent for the year. You know, it's like, really is. But yeah, I would think like $70K here, or Southern Indiana, you just got known as the meth capital of the world. That's a lot of meth. I guess you could be happy if you're on meth all the time. Shit, to a point. I wouldn't want to try it. Very true. It was just, yeah. So there, it's respective for where you're at. But I think the good point about that study is there's a happiness in moderation that we don't see when we're always wishing we had more, because the key, I once read this really great book that said the key to happiness is being content with where you're at right now. So for example, if you're living the most miserable time of your life, but you find a way to be happy, you're always going to be happy going forward. Being content where you're at right now. What keeps you from being content? I will tell you something. A negative attitude, and that is people who chronically complain, then they blame on everyone else, their problems, or something isn't the way it's supposed to be because of this, that, or the other. Maneuver around it. Bruce Lee said, be like water. Flow around it. Water doesn't try to push against things. It just goes. It finds the way. Path of least resistance. Now back to leadership. There's 3 words. And if you're not following these 3 words, you're wrong as a leader. Step down. Let somebody else take control. Because all you're doing is bringing toxic leadership. Directing, delegating, participating. Directing. Hey, this is the job. This is what you need to do. You go do it. Okay. Or this is how you do it, right? That is the direct, and then you delegate it. You delegate authority to oversee all those other people doing it. So you pick another person, you say, hey, go watch them, make sure it happens. Now you've invested trust in somebody. Leadership is an ongoing process. It's always not doing the right thing at that time. Real quick, Sarah says, I was just talking today with a lady who cleans houses, and she cleans for people who others wouldn't. I care for people who others didn't want to. So finding your niche, and you will have more work. And then it says see more, and I can't see more. Sorry, but yeah, that's it. I mean, there's so many simple things you could do. Find that extra time, find that extra way to make money, apply it correctly, and you'll go into more freedom. If you just make more money and you go into more debt, you're not doing anything. And that is what happens all too often. Jamie says, doesn't Buddhism focus on living in the now, happiness in the moment? Yes, and I thought about that. I'll get to that in a second, Jamie, because that really was crossing my mind a lot. I was like, wait a minute. But because the last segment here is all about the now and the past and how damaging it could be. But 1 second, I'm going to finish this up. So we have directing, delegating, and then participating. So you have a task. Hey, you 3, you're going to go do that. Okay. You're going to go watch those 3. And it better get done at this time. You give a standard. And that standard is what sticks to it. Okay, so what happens? After they're doing it, you as a leader, in some respect, if it's shoveling dirt or whatever, you don't sit on your butt. You go over there and you work with the people. Because when you're working and doing those jobs with the people that don't like, I mean, if you're working, whatever job let's just say, okay, in the military, if we're filling sandbags, all too many times, if you're filling sandbags somewhere or doing a minuscule job in the military, the sergeant or senior sergeant or whatever will say, okay, go tell these guys to do this, and then this guy's in charge. But how many times have I seen morale in guys that I was with where I just walked over there and started working with them? Why? I always told them this. Okay, look, just because I was a staff sergeant and you're a private, that's one thing, but you signed the paper to be here and you're still a human being. Okay, you have to do your rite of passage. I got that, but I'm showing you as a leader that I can do the job right next to you. So it's the example, lead by example. So take that attitude, that approach, and apply it to anything you got. That's what the leader is. Now, of course, you have to know what the job is. I was kind of criticized this every now and then, and in the military, because when I was given a task, instead of just directly delegating it, I would redelegate it to another leader because I simply didn't know what to do. And they were like, well, why didn't you go do that? Well, because I was going to screw it up and look like an idiot. And I personally don't believe that's the right way to go. If you don't know what you're doing, ask. It's a good sign. So every day when I have the kids clean up the playroom, I get down on the floor and clean with them, teaches them work ethic. That's cool. You know that. So Jamie says that she has her children do something every day, and then they're cleaning up the playroom, so to speak, and she's there with them, showing it. It's not making their job easier. She's showing she's exemplifying. That's the word. What they need to be when they get older, because these characteristics we instill in children while they're young. I mean, if you're complaining about society and all this other shit today, then start with the kids you know. Be an example to somebody in their life. It's not hard, okay? Just show your life to that example. Okay, so last one, then I'll get my closing remarks here. But this has been beautiful tonight. Thank you guys so much for your participation. We've had great comments. So we've had procrastination from Mel. We've had sheeple. The comment of sheeple is my favorite. I agree with you. Look, there's a world we're going down and people are blind. The thing is, you just gotta, what you put value into being angry about will eventually make you an angry person. So it is good to have anger, but be angry at the right people at the right time. If you're going to be mad at society because they're sheep, I mean, we hear that a lot. Maybe we don't understand their concept. Maybe people are stupid. Maybe people in Georgia, Atlanta, can't drive worth a shit. Like the worst everywhere. Sorry, Atlanta. You guys suck up in Atlanta. Seriously. You ever been through Atlanta? God damn. So, anyway, but on that, just be sure where you're putting your anger, because it will come back on you. The last ones were finding purpose, or when you get to a new job and you got to find purpose and things like that. I will just elaborate on that last part, and I will tell you, there's a saying, myself and Boone Cutler, if you have ever seen South Park, the PC principal, that's Boone Cutler. Man, he was in Solder City, in Baghdad, a couple of years before I was, and predicted the whole surge. So we became good friends, but we came up with this saying, says, a warfighter with a mission is a deadly warfighter. A warfighter without a mission is a dead warfighter. But that applies to anybody in life. When you have your mission and you're focused, you're deadly. You're on. But when you lose your purpose and you start floating, you're going to dead, and it's scary. So when I left the service for 2 years, life was over. I did what I needed to do. There was nothing else. Tried to find happiness. Happiness came in the form of a bunch of bad habits. So I had to really sit down and think, what is it that you've always wanted to do ever since a kid that you forgot? Well, I want to read more. Okay, well, what else is it? Well, I think it's time that I just continually trying to be a better person, if not to make up for how crappy I was, but in general, to pass on the experience to people and say, hey, I went through this crap, okay, of thinking this way and it ended up here. If I can save you from going there, Trust me, you don't want to go over there. And that's the show in some respect. That's my purpose. That's how I found it. It doesn't make money. The show actually costs a lot of money a lot of times. But I love doing it because I believe in some respect, somebody's benefiting from some of the shit that I had to eat through. And I think you guys can do that too. Find out what it is you wanted to do as a kid. I think it starts there if you lost your purpose. Because along the way we grow up and we realize that things are a lie. But it doesn't change at heart what you were originally supposed to be here for. So now to the closing comments. There is I've learned something very interesting lately. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm going to get up here a little closer with the T because we're going to get all heartwarming. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's a astrophysicist, gave a concept of why we can't see time. Okay, follow with me on here. So he gives an example, right? He says, we live in the fourth dimension, we can only see the third. For those of you who don't know, the first dimension is the length, the second dimension is the width, so the L, right? The L, the paper. The length and then the width, right? Okay, then the third dimension is up, or height. Now, he says, picture if you will. And then encompassed in this is time. We move forward with it. He says, picture if you will, there's an ant, and the ant lives on the 2D plane. The ant cannot see up. So the ant is putting pieces of paper down on here, side by side, row by row, until it fills up, and the ant cannot put more paper on this plane. So you, being a higher dimensional being, come down and look down and you can talk to the ant because we can communicate to lower dimensions, not the higher ones. And you say, hey, Mr. Ant, I'm going to clear your desk here and I'm going to figure out a problem. So you bring your paper holder, you put it on the desk, and you remove a piece of paper, and boom, you slide it in the paper holder. The ant does not see where the paper goes, it just disappears. So too is time. We cannot see the physical construct of time because it isn't. What time is, and why this is so important in a minute, is matter. Okay, there's matter. This is mass. It's composed of something, right? Mass has gravity. And gravity, the bigger the mass, the bigger the chunk, there's a fabric, as they say. And this fabric bends the space and time around it. That's why things move slower when they're going around bigger objects. Now, Dr. Michael Kaku has given the definition of antimatter. It is matter going back in time, going backward in time. If matter, use my candles here again. If matter, and it's a proposed theory, it's legit for this philosophy. Matter and antimatter collide, they disintegrate. So what does this mean? Let's use a time machine concept. I'm a big fan of time travel. I always love reading about this stuff. Ever as a kid, fascinated about it. It's good shit. Here's my philosophy with this. Probably not even sound with science, but check it out. You're matter, right? You invent a time machine. You are, let's use the board here. Okay, so here's where you were a teenager, right? I don't know if you can see that. Okay, and here's where you are now, and you invented the time machine. Your matter moving backward in time, the moment it arrives to this intersection, the very second it arrives at that point, because the same matter cannot occupy the same space at the same time. It disintegrates. Okay, so then everything from your life from here to there, because you travel back, is gone. Okay, so why is that cool analogy so important? Because when we live in the past, we become destructive to ourselves. The one thing I found on my search to just stop being so chronically depressed every day, and I was a good bit suicidal from the war. I mean, things still plague me about it, but I have a method for dealing whenever I start to get into the mode of going downhill. Is that all these people I knew in my life who've been good mentors, they've all said the same thing. is that they're very forward-looking. And, you know, a girl told me this a while back, and it was we were having a conversation, and I said, what is your key to happiness? Why is it that you don't deal with this depression like that? How do you control your thoughts from going back there? And she says, because I'm very forward-looking. And so the reason I bring this up now, this analogy, is because it just hit me this week. And that was like 5 years ago when she told me what it means. Like the heart and matter. Now, it may seem very basic to you what it means to sound forward-looking, but stand with me. To be forward-looking means you're moving forward. Even though the past is where it's at, you have a full awareness and full consciousness that it is there. It's not coming back. To dwell on it, just like you taking your time machine and going back into the past, is nothing more than you dwelling back there and destroying yourself little by little. That is why having the past mindset and dwelling on it and not figuring out a way to let it go is so destructive to the human soul, whatever you want to call it. So I understand fully, yes, you're going to say, well, what, you know, everybody's going to have trauma and deal with, yes, but there's a difference. There is a time you have to grieve. You're going to go through grieving. It's a necessary process. Grieving involves like anger and all these things. As long as you're not just staying there and saying that's where the answer is, to just stay there, I give up, quit, then you're not destroying yourself. You're moving forward. Jamie says, I think the mind is a true time traveler. Think in the past, destructive. Think in the present, happiness. Think in the future, creative. Yes, that's a beautiful way. Get over it, move on. Dave says, these are all true. These are all so true, exactly, to everything. I was trying to get across, and you guys just summed it up beautifully, because I was like, how do I say this? But that's it. The mind controls where everything's going. So let's say if you're sitting there and you're dwelling on a trauma, and you're allowing your mind to get rid of those thoughts, or go back to that time, your heart races, you start panicking, all these other things. Well, here is the very physical way, or the very mental process to deal with it. Okay, you've all had intrusive thoughts at some respect, and you're right, and you just can't get away. Usually it comes after a death or a breakup. Now, if you're divorced or had a breakup, that is to be treated like a death if you've been together for a long time, right? It really is, because it's a death of something. You have to understand that with intrusive thoughts, the ownership of those thoughts. Just because a thought enters the head, so too can it leave the mind right away. You have the power to do that. You have the power to let it stay, or you have the power to just say, okay, just because these thoughts are coming out of nowhere and they're intrusive and they're horrible, doesn't mean I have to let them take up residence in my mind. On that, if something is causing you to continually redwell in the past, and as we just pointed out, your matter going back in time, or your thoughts going back in time, either way, it's destructive. The outcome is always destructive for staying in the past. Use the past as a lesson, move forward. And sometimes it's so painful and scary to move forward to the future that we do everything to avoid it, including living in the past, and we end up destroying ourselves and those around us, because that gravity is just like space-time, is taking up everything else. Your destruction reaches out to people. So if for anybody else, you get the intrusive thoughts, let them go. Disconnect. Block the person on Facebook. Erase the pictures off the phone. Hide everything. Go heal. And most importantly, love yourself now. Sarah says you can think on stuff. Give it some time. That's limited, 5 minutes. Yeah, exactly. So there's a time it's acceptable. I mean, the brain's got to process it. You want healthy emotion. You don't want to just jump from traumatic event to, hey, it don't bother me, I'm good. You do have to heal. But the point is, with the healing, your attitude is, I'm focused on getting better, even though it's still hard, versus, oh, the world, fuck this, or excuse me, screw this, the world's cruel, nobody cares. That's you back there. Because when does nobody care? People care. Stop playing that fiddle. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. I know we're a little late. We've covered some great stuff from the Vikings, snowball fight, to self-defense, diets, a little bit. Look up that blood type diet. I will have more on Norse mythology here in the coming weeks. Really want to get the the facts about it before I even talk. That's a field I am interested in, but just don't have enough to talk about it. And I hope that I have helped. If I haven't helped you guys with the questions that you asked, what's keeping you from being happy, I hope somebody watching this may have been helped. But I can tell that you've helped me personally, and I want to thank you. So, go on. Focus on the future. There's good things there. You're going to get to that point eventually. So you might as well start setting up your future in the present. Now, Jamie, that's the last part. Buddhism focuses on living in the now. I think in that respect, when we create the now better, our futures are better. And that's why it's important. But we don't, once the now is always like so blurred between the past and the future. So we have to move that direction no matter what. I'm Anthony Farina, Fire Team Philosophy. Love deeply, forgive often, be kind, and above all, be charitable. We'll see you next week.